And one thing I've been meaning to work on with him, which I'm not doing yet, is just making sure he stands still when I get on. And I did not do that. This is going to be kind of a long one, but I think the difference between the beginning and the end is going to show you some good things, so it'll be worth it. Did a little turn there to kind of get him changing on to the new outside rein. He really wants to duck behind the bit. And full disclosure, I did warm him up a little bit before filming this, so it's not like I just got on and decided to start trotting. Thought I'd play around with some sitting trot. Still a little bit of a challenge to kind of only move my seat and not move my torso or my hands really, or my, my legs too much. I think riding bareback has helped me a lot with that, but I still have a ways to go. So I move back up into the sitting trot, and what I'm doing in this exercise is riding a square, and it's similar to what I was doing before. I'm using the cones as my corners, and I'm using my outside rein, just kind of pulling back a little bit more on the outside rein and pushing with my outside leg to get him around the turn. And something I'm still struggling with is finding the balance of outside rein and inside rein, because I don't want to fully counterbend him. I know I need to, do a little bit of counterbending because I'm trying to get him on the outside rein, because I'm compensating for riding him on only the inside rein for so long. Did a little canter there. Still working on not having his head come up in the transition. And I'm still struggling with not having floppy reins. I think in this ride today I was a little bit better, especially towards the end, of really trying to feel the inside of his mouth and be steady but also elastic. But I'm not quite there yet in my ride at this point. I'm also kind of in trying to keep my elbows back. I think I'm kind of cantering a little bit with my shoulders, which is not ideal. You can kind of see my shoulders are going forward a little bit. So I really need to kind of separate my hips from my torso and use my belly muscles. And my outside rein is a little bit forward there. I'm trying my hardest to get him to actually do little right turns there. Not right turns, but right angles, turning left. But it's very tricky because A, it's really hard for him to balance that, and B, I get really tight when I think too hard. And yeah, that's why, he broke, because I was like, getting tight. Outside rein still a little too far back. And you'll notice, he'll try to go around, and then when it gets hard, he's going to duck behind into the contact. And what I try to do is just right there, he ducked back. I try to kind of push him forward, say, nope, lift yourself up, carry yourself. That's not what we're going for here. Trying my best to use my outside rein there and switch to my new outside rein, which is now my left rein. I did that change. Yeah, it balanced him for a second, and then he's like, I'm gonna go on the forehand, and then I'm like, no, and I squeezed him up, and then he wants to break to the walk, and there we did a downward, but that was a little abrupt still. It's just really hard for him. What I'm asking him to do is physically challenging, to actually carry himself and me. So he'll do it, and then when it gets hard, he'll either run or go on the forehand or duck behind the contact or break. That was a so-so canter transition. really trying to use my outside rein. And you'll notice the more I try, the farther forward my head gets because I'm like so focusing on that. And it's not ideal either. Yep, trying to think. I gotta have shorter reins. Ask him up into the canter. He still came up above the contact. Pushing a little bit much with my shoulders. I try really hard to be soft with my legs. And I'm workshopping right now. How do I keep my leg on him to keep him going without getting tight? And that's the hardest thing for me. I've managed to not be tight, but then it's hard for me to keep him going in the canter. He used to break before because I was so tight. Now he just breaks because I can't keep him going, which is why I typically will ride with a crop. I do have a dressage whip in this video. And I'm thinking, okay, do a little bit of shoulders in just to kind of get him on the outside rein a little bit. And he's actually fairly good at the shoulders in at the walk. Need to shorten those reins. I need to bring my shoulders back and bring my head back. I'm really curling forward. I'm like resembling the letter C right now. Such a patient horse. He's so patient with me. And then I'm like, maybe I'll do a step of leg yield. And then I'm like, oh, I'm kind of close to the camera. The camera might lose me. But it didn't. Good job, Pivo. You didn't lose me. It does lose me later, though. But that's okay. And then I'm like, and canter. Preparation is everything. And I think I don't prepare enough. And now we're going down to the scary end of the ring. And I feel like using my outside rein going to the scary end of the ring is kind of counterproductive. There I did a little bit of canter leg yielding. He does tend to get a little bit fast because it's hard. And I'm just not collecting him well. And then I'm like, move over. And then he's like, okay. And then I'll swap leads. But he didn't fully change. So then it was kind of a mess. That was a mess. And then I'm like, oh, let's do changes. And none of them are clean. Just forewarning you. Because he's not round. So I don't know why I would expect that he would have a clean change if he's not actually on the bit and lifting up in the front and rocking his weight back. Because then he doesn't have the airtime to change. And also, like I was saying before, preparation. I'm not really preparing him. I'm like, and go. And go. And he's like, I have to change before I hit the fence. So he tries his best, poor horse. I don't know why I thought that this was a good idea. He always switches in the front, and then he like tries to swap in the back, and poor horse. And I'm like throwing my shoulders down at him. He's such a good guy. So I'm like, maybe that wasn't the best course of action right now to do. Let's do something else. Let's do, some leg yielding. Or maybe some shoulders in. I did a lot of things today. My baggy shirt. Baggy flannel. Didn't need it. It was warm out today. And I'm finagling, whatever. I'm being very handsy. Even if it doesn't look like it, I'm being handsy. And this is where I'm like, we better leg yield so that we don't hit that jump standard. Inside, I'm using my inside leg and my inside rein and putting my weight on my outside seat bone, which is my left seat bone in this direction. Just trying to do a little bit of leg yielding over to change it up. And I feel like even though my lateral work today was not the best, I think my riding after it did actually turn out to be okay, because it's kind of broke it up for me and him, because I can't ride that square forever. I don't think he can either. So I'm like leg yielding to the right, and then I turn left, and I'm constantly thinking, okay, what's my new outside rein? Using my outside rein, but also using my left rein, left leg. Oh, you know what? I think this was when I was like attempting a half pass, which I'm sorry that you had to watch that. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I can do the shoulders in, I can do the haunches in, I can do the leg yield, but can we do the half pass? No. And you know what? It's mostly my fault because I'm inhibiting him. He's not physically there yet. And that's the fun thing about lateral work, is it's not for the purpose of looking cool. It literally has a purpose of strengthening the horse, and when the horse is physically ready. So there's our shoulders in. It could be better, but he's such a good boy about it, and it really makes sense in my brain and helps me connect my inside leg to the outside rein. So I'm a big fan of it, especially right now. And then we either do it again, or maybe I try the haunches in. I can't remember. I think I'm trying the haunches in here, which I historically always have a brain fart when it comes to haunches in, which you wouldn't think it would be that hard, because it literally is just the opposite of what I was doing before, but for some reason it's... So then I'm like, okay, let's do shoulders in again, because I like that one. You know, inside leg, outside rein, inside leg, outside rein. Bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, and we like that. Not that him ducking behind the bit, but we like the shoulders in. But then he's also getting a little quick and a little bit more on the forehand, as you'll see a little bit. He's good at faking it to the untrained eye, but he's actually quite heavy in the front. And it's not like he's pulling me forward. He's just, you can tell he's not lifting up. So I'm going to have to do some jumping work with him to get him a little bit more on his hind. Haha. That'll be fun. I actually think the jumping work is what has helped him get as far as he has. So there, he's getting a little more steady, or he's getting steadier there, because of me really using the shoulders in to connect my inside leg to his outside rein. And I'm asking him to really stretch his left side of his body. And there I do a little turn, and I'm like, maybe I'll do some shoulders in towards the camera. And I was like, that was a big fail, because I was like, I only had like a little bit of space, and then I didn't want to run into the camera. See, that was all right. That's looking better. It is looking better, because I can kind of see him trying. He's trying to lift up the saddle. And then I'm like, I'll try it from the other way. Although, you know, I didn't have enough room still. And I'm like looking, oh, you know what? I was looking left because there was like a truck driving by really slow, and I didn't know why it was there. That's why I was looking in the wrong direction. Luckily, he's a good boy, and he knew I wanted to turn right. So then I'm like, okay, I need to go down farther and then try my shoulders in towards the camera. We'll see how this turned out. I'm trying to do it, and then he's like, I'm going to jump the pole. He's a jumper at heart. He definitely prefers jumping, let's be honest. It's me who's forcing him to do dressage, and he's putting up with it. So there's ducking behind the bit again, and what I really need to do is just sit back and push him forward into that contact. He's such a tolerant horse. Every time I see his head come up, I'm like, too much rein. Because I can have short hands, but I need to be quiet. All right, so there I'm doing my shoulders in as if I was tracking left. I didn't really see anything. I didn't see the 3 tracks, so I don't think it was actually a true shoulders in. But whatever. And this whole time, my shoulders are not where they should be. I mean, the big shirt doesn't help, but now I'm trying shoulders in the other way. And that looks a lot better because you can, for a few steps, you could kind of see the 3 tracks, but it didn't last very long. I'm using the term better very generously. And, you can kind of feel the difference, too. And I'm like, I'm going to try the candor again because I think it'll be better. And, overall, it did feel better, but his head still came up in the transition because he was on the forehand going into it. So, of course, he's going to be on the forehand in the canter because the quality of the gait that you enter into the transition with is the quality of the next gait that you have. Literally, every time I watch these videos, I'm like, more outside rein, more outside rein, more outside rein. Although there, I could use a little bit of inside rein, right about there. Isn't that funny? I wish I could watch myself while I'm riding so I could change it. That's why you always get a second set of eyes on the ground. Pumping a little bit with my shoulders. Yeah, and my hands were super unsteady, and that was terrible. That actually felt worse than it looked. But it was not good. So in this canter, I'm really focusing on feeling both sides of his mouth and having a feel and really moving with his mouth, but keeping that straight line from my elbow to his mouth. And I feel like that, I feel like that's already a lot better. I could use a little bit more outside rein, I think. Just slide that outside elbow back a little bit. And it also gets a little bit quick because I'm experimenting with my hands differently. So then, of course, my whole body decides to freak out. And then I'm like, I don't know how to ride again. And I'm getting tight and bouncing around. And so... And also, the other part of it, too, is, he just physically can't hold it for that long yet either, so I can't expect too much of him. Because, he can drop his head down, but to be truly on the bit and round, he physically cannot do that yet for very long. My elbows are a little stiff there, so you can kind of see my hands bouncing up and down very slightly, but it's enough. And then I'm like, all right, you've been good. You can stretch out. But then I'm like, but I also want to make sure you don't go on the forehand. He's definitely loves to do that. He loves to just dive. And I'm like, we're going to do one more canter. I know we're both really tired, but I think we've got it in us to canter in this direction one more time. Because I was pretty happy with how the last canter went overall. So I'm shortening up my reins and I'm using my core to kind of lift him up. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to ask when the trot is good and he's stretching over his back. And I think that went pretty well. It's definitely getting better, but it's very slight. And I'm trying to follow. You can see my outside hand is still more forward than my inside, which I want that to be back a little bit more. And we break to the trot. I don't know if it was because I was tired or not. And then I'm going to ask him up again next time around the circle, which I think is, out of all of my canter transitions, this ride was the best one. And you want to make sure you ask when you're sitting the post. So I tell myself, you probably can hear now, 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 now. Oh, I didn't ask for the canter. Okay. Surprised me. Yeah. So what happened there was he dove behind. Yeah. And I was like, that was bad. He dove behind. I got slack in the reins. And then that's why his head came up. Because he's like, that was my good one. Yes. I know it wasn't that great, but I think compared to all of the other ones, I waited until he was stretching into the bit and really focused on following his mouth rather than just having a brain freeze and throwing it away. And that's why I was like, all right, that was perfect. Good boy. Let's stretch out and be done. And it's those little tiny things that's what helps you get through. So thanks for watching.